we use the word time as our reasoning within our own selves when
Right.
it's not the time itself. Time
Right.
gets blamed for everything,
Yeah, I don't have
unfortunately.
time, etc. Yeah, yeah,
Time gets blamed for everything. Time is time.
yeah.
It's not the time, it's the steps and the actions that we're willing to take, whether
Mm.
we're ready and within our own capacity, within our own mindset, within our own ways. But
Yes.
so many of us use the word, I have no time, or it's not the right time. It's like, stop blaming time. Time is a beautiful thing that is granted
Yeah.
to every single person that's alive right now that's hearing this. They get the privilege of the same time frame as everyone else.
Yeah.
Welcome to Attitude of Altitude podcast, presented by Planet of One. We're sharing stories and conversations, encouraging and empowering listeners to be bold, take action, and be your best self, so we may be the change we desire to see in this world. Know that your attitude determines your altitude in life. Welcome to the podcast.
You have a million things going on in your life. So what happens is that people, in my opinion, um, don't get the bigger picture. So to them, if you're not doing this, then you should do this the way we just start, do these things. And I agree with some of that mentality. But there is something to be said for, okay, when's the right moment to strike, right? If you're into martial arts, you don't just go out and start swinging, right? You train, you do something, and you build what it is you could do. Right? I just want to, let's say I just started boxing, or I just started Muay Thai, what I've actually done, right? and if I went out and just started swinging at people, I'm going to get beat up every single time. And then I'm going to get discouraged because I'm not training. Now, granted, I have to at some point go out there and prove myself on some level, right? So I can't just be like, to be here for one punch. Okay, that's enough. But there is something to be said for training, like who you are and what you're all about. Even no matter how trained you are, you're never going to be ready for the lesson. That's when you launch, right? Go, you got it. But there are parts of me that has that already with certain things, and then with the program, or the new program that I'm building, I'm in the process of training. Working out a little bit more, refining what it is, not as much as physical as the mental and the words and the verbiage, and testing ideas out on people and seeing their reaction and pulling that in and absorbing all that. Then I'm pretty close to that, But the mentality behind just launch, like it works. I get it, But for me, like I start seeing through what people are actually saying. They don't want to customize a method for somebody. It takes too long to do that. So you tell them to do certain things. Do this, do that, do that. Okay. Yeah. And to some degree, like if I would just wait until I was ready to do a podcast, my first podcast that I've ever done, it would have never happened. It was a catalyst of somebody being kind of the coach on the way building it. Right? When you're by yourself, it's hard to be your own coach. So, but if you're able to feed off another person, or someone else has this idea, say, hey, why don't you try this first, then this, then this? Because just doing it, you're setting yourself up for a lot of learning along the way down, which is fine too. Again, if you want to do that and you're prepared for that, go for it. Okay? And I'm not saying it's a wrong mentality. I just think that a lot of people will package that up and tell everybody to just do everything immediately. Just go after it. What good is it if you don't think about what the alternatives are, or what the program is, or what you're trying to do, what you're aiming to accomplish with these things? And I feel people sell these prepackaged notions and ideas. They don't want to customize it. It's almost the antithesis of what we're doing. I don't think people and on the venue of what we're talking about is time. People don't want to take time to refine things and coach you on based on what you've already done and what you've already accomplished. Okay, well, here's how to just do it. Not just do it. That's not a solution. That's a Nike slogan.
Which I love that slogan, by the
I love
way.
it too, but again, like the world is, there's nuance, and I don't like the answers to people because some people aren't ready to just do it. Some people suck at it, and you have to continue to do it. Go forward, yes, but throw everything out there on in the ring. I don't agree with that. You got to train first. You could,
Yes,
if you put your best foot forward, again, there's nothing wrong with just going launch and just testing things out. And I agree with that philosophy, but again, I don't have a lot to prove with that philosophy because I've already done that. I've already accomplished a lot thus far in the realm that I'm in. So the reason why I'm not moving forward with even a marketing podcast, because I don't have the right rapport that I would prefer. Not that I couldn't do it myself, just I'd rather do a certain type of thing. And so therefore I haven't done that. And I work on different, with this is the first time I'm jumping back into podcasting because I have the right rapport with somebody. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing it. Just to do a podcast, I don't have to prove anything with that. I coach people on podcasting, but this is the right time and the right space to have this dialogue. I like this. This makes me feel better. But if I just did it, I wouldn't be comfortable. But again, I'm not trying to burst your bubble. This started off with something, I learned something. And I'm like, yeah, screw all that.
But I like how you're saying it's the right timing. Honestly, I see a lot of people where they don't even begin because somewhere in their mentality, they're almost looking for that guarantee that whatever it is that they're going to touch, it's going to turn out to be exactly what they think it's going to be, and it's going to be perfection.
Right.
And there is no guarantee on anything. As you well know from the classes you teach, from the classes I teach, every course is different depending on the individuals and the circumstances and what's going on, even though the material is the same. But there is no guarantee of how everything is going to occur. So when I see individuals that over hesitate in taking a step,
right,
because they're waiting for the right time. Well, when is there ever a completely right time?
That's exactly right. I think the analogy of doing that, it makes sense because there is no right time. You got, like in my case of my analogy of training for martial arts, it'd be like, I don't know which art to do. I don't know when to start training, so I'm going to wait until I figure that out. But you have to start. And again, depending on where you start and what you're starting with, can make the most sense for you. And that's where I agree with that, because if I didn't, again, in my own life, if I didn't start just go forward or just dive in, I wouldn't have done it. Right. This opportunity came and I took it. And when I liked some things, I took that opportunity to start something. But again, it's like when you go in swimming, the water's cold. It's not going to get any warmer. If you dive in, you get it out of the way, right? Just do it, right? So there is some truth to that. And again, I'm not denouncing any of that. I think it's important to start something. And I guess where you start is where the nuance is. What are you starting with? Are you practicing talking? Are you writing down ideas every day to come up with something in the future, or is this, you gonna set a goal to start something by this time? And then what's holding you back? What is is it you're afraid? You gotta be honest with yourself. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that because of X, Y, or Z. And if it's the obstacle is, I want it to be perfect, well, then start it. It's not going to be perfect right now. Yeah, I get it. Where in your life have you had that most experience? Is it with this podcast?
Partially with this podcast, partially even with the teaching of the program, launching the program. All of those pieces come together. It's like, is this the right time? Is this the right piece? Is this the right whatever? And the biggest learning comes from actually taking the steps and going forward and making it the right time.
Yeah.
in some ways. I mean, even when we launched this podcast, I mean,
Yeah.
people that may not know me, I literally went and saw you to get the teaching and the courage to even set up a podcast, which
Well,
a
in
lot
the
of
beginning, yeah,
people,
the first when we met, basically.
yes.
Well, and how we met.
Uh-huh.
But it was based around that idea. It's based around the fact that you kind of needed, and that's my point. You needed a coach, right? You needed somebody to at least give you some guidance. You knew you were going to do it. Just need to know, yeah, there wasn't a right time to do it, but you by virtue of you seeking out somebody to help you, you started already. You were, I guess that's my problem with the mentality of just do it. It's like, well, yeah, but what is doing it? People forget about the journey. You know what I mean? We were talking about that last time we spoke, is that people don't appreciate the journey you did to even get to that point, including the people that are in the journey don't appreciate it. Like, take a look back and look, wow, I did a lot to get to here even. I'm not saying you should rest on that. I'm great, but it's a part of yourself that you forget that, wait a minute, just as you said, about a year ago, we met because you were looking for some help, and a mutual friend of ours, knew that I worked on podcasts that could help out. By virtue of that, we became friends, and I joined our mastermind. And here we are, over a year later, maybe 2 years has it been?
2 years.
2 years, yeah. Oh my God, they're crazy, 2 years later,
time flies when we're having fun, huh?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, right? But it took that initiative, it took that spark to go, okay, I would like help with this, and then that led us to being here. So we had the right method, and then you launched, and we launched a podcast based around your interviews and that type of thing. And you found out you were ready. You were more ready than you thought you were.
Mm-hmm.
So you already kind of trained already, and you had the right methods. You knew the right people. It was just a matter of launching at that point. So you did.
And I guess that's exactly what I'm getting to. We use the word time as our reasoning within our own selves, when it's not the time itself. Time gets blamed for everything.
Yeah, I don't have time, etc. Yeah.
Time gets blamed for everything. Time is time.
Yeah.
It's not the time. It's the steps and the actions that we're willing to take, whether we're ready and within our own capacity, within our own mindset, within our own ways.
Yes.
But so many of us use the word, I have no time, or it's not the right time. It's like, stop blaming time. Time is a beautiful thing that is granted to every single person that's alive right now that's hearing this. They get the privilege of the same time frame as everyone else.
Yeah, we're all in the same time frame.
Yet,
if you think about it, we're all exist. No one exists outside of the time that we're in. We're all in it. They're all doing the same thing. It's just what you're doing during that time that's either causing an obstacle, or you, in some cases, people are just making excuses to not do certain things. And that's where I do agree with this philosophy. So again, it's like I have this weird dichotomy, but you're right. Time is a thing that's omnipresent. It's always now. It's always now. It's never not now. Right. Every single moment we're now. It doesn't mean, so if not now, when? When's the next now that you can actually do the thing, right? Because we're already losing precious seconds right now. As of right now.
Our life ticking away.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting closer to the end. So when is the now that you're ready for? And so again, there is that thing of the element of understanding that there's this omnipresent thing that's happening, and what you have to carve out is actions that it takes to do the thing you set to accomplish, right? What are those steps, as you said? What are those steps? And do at least one of the steps. Move forward. That's the only direction we're going forward in time. So go with it. Move forward. Carve out that time. Take that time to do that. Because it's always now. Never not now. There's no such thing as yesterday or tomorrow. You know,
Because
yeah.
even with all the individuals that we work with, that we're colleagues with, how many times do you hear people say, I need time management?
Yeah,
How many times do we hear that?
yeah. That's like
And really, who
BS.
can manage time? There is no such thing as
Yeah.
managing time. And it's not being facetious to them, but really what we're attempting to manage is our own selves
Yeah.
and what we're applying ourselves to or not applying ourselves. How are we
Yeah.
investing this precious time that we have?
Right.
So every time I hear someone says, I need a time management, whatever, I
No.
go,
Yeah.
no, you need a personal management. Yes, there's tools,
Yeah. You need a
but it's
priority
you.
manager.
Correct. Coming down to what really matters and
Yeah.
where you're investing your time and energy
Yeah.
and what's it for.
Yeah. Where's your priorities? And what are you spending your energy taking care of first? Maybe you should reverse some of that, move things around. That's what that project management, but it's really priority management. It's because we have the same amount of time as everybody. But are these things taking longer? Are these things taking shorter? Do you need to do this thing? Is there a quicker way to get to point B? And maybe, and some things we discussed, like maybe hiring people to take care of things that would take a lot longer for us to do. And while they're doing that, we're doing what we're good at. I've heard that from several people like that are in really good high places in terms of like running businesses and stuff. Like when they started, they said, I hire everything that if it doesn't require me doing it, which is arguable because everyone's going to say, well, I have to take care of it. I have to take care of it. No. Only the thing that you have to take care of is the reason why you're selling what you're selling, the entity behind what you're trying to accomplish or aiming to accomplish. Everything else, someone else could take care of for you. Just got to find the right people. And it's like we were talking about editing videos or putting together this thing or making a graphic. And anecdote I have is someone I knew, I was working on a logo. I built a logo a long time ago, and many years ago, like in 2001, I drew something out, and I was like, oh, this looks like
That's
this.
ancient, 2001.
Yeah, exactly. and what's funny about it too is that I didn't have a use for it. I just drew the logo, and I didn't know what I was going to use it for. So eventually, I used it for my music, and then kind of now it's moving its way into my program. But the funny thing is, one part of the was a little bigger than the other part, and just one little part of it, and that's it. It doesn't bother me. Matter of fact, I'll even show you the logo. So here, and that's the logo. So, and one part of this, of the other side too, it's slightly bigger than this part, right? And the trained eye would notice it. Also, it could be even on purpose. Maybe that's the reason why it's like it's lopsided for a reason. I could make it, but I wanted to see what it would look like if it was even. But I never did it myself. I didn't bother learning to fix it. I built this logo myself in Illustrator, but I'm only good enough to build that part of it. I to edit it the way I wanted to. I don't know how to really do all that, so I'd have to research it and figure it out, then relearn the software because it's been years since I built that. And then I met somebody and we were chatting, and she asked me some SEO stuff, and I said, "Can I ask you a favor?" And I asked to help me build a version of that. She said, "Yeah." The next day, she did it. There you go, done. What? I just had to ask. And the thing is, I always thought I had to hire somebody, and then it's going to cost me X amount of money. And I always feel like they're going to try to rip me off. And no, just ask. Sometimes the right people will be there right in front of you. And all you have to do is say, hey, I have these priorities, but I keep holding back because of some mental block or whatever that is. So hand it off to someone else. Hey, can you take care of this? And sure enough, there'll be people that will be there for you. Just got to ask the right questions and put your priorities.
It made me laugh because this person in overnight created exactly what you were looking for.
Yeah.
And you had been mulling it over for a period of time, and it would have taken you a lot longer. But because this is their expertise, the time factor goes by so fast.
Yes. And they're outside of what your time is, what you consider your time, right? Because if you have 1,000 things going on and you don't get to it because I'm too tired, or I did this, or I have too many other priorities, well, that's where you need to hand that off. And it worked out perfect. It worked out for this thing. It worked out for a program that that I was trying to wrap my brain around, and we had a mutual contact of ours step in and just do something that was beyond what I had even asked for. But because I asked, it fast forwarded where I would be right now if I had not asked. Because I would still mull that over. I'd still try to be figuring out, oh, should I build this or should I build that? I said, hey, I have some ideas. I'm looking for this. They're like, okay, come back a week later. Wow, that's great. Can we do this? Sure. Come back another week later, but dude, now it's 2 weeks to take care of something that I had been spending 2 years to do. Right.
Isn't that neat? So she really added time to your life by
Yeah.
taking on those pieces that were to her simple to create for her
Yeah.
because she understood them and she put them all together. So
Yeah.
when people talk about adding time or managing time, that's one way of managing time is having the right people do the right things, whether
Yeah.
you hire an assistant or you get a coach or all the things that help you kind of increase your time by giving you your time back.
Right. Absolutely. That's 100% a great way of looking at it, because it goes back, circling back to what you were saying about even starting the podcast. You know, to get it going, you sought after help, coach, and I became quote unquote the coach. And then that was the catalyst to get it going. You know, and now here we are in a different capacity, but we also went through a time period of re-coaching each other, right? In that level, right? So it was another training session that was a little bit more behind the scenes, and now here we are launching the new time, right? And but it is something that we you can't. It's really hard to do it alone, 100% alone. So if you feel like you're alone, then start looking for people that can help you along the way, the peripheral people that can maybe take care of even the smallest things. You know, I don't know, someone take care of your laundry while you're working, whatever it is. You know, like if you feel like that there's something you need to take care of that just keeps eating away at your quote unquote time, or more so your priorities, then what can you pass off to someone else so they can take care of those priorities, so that you prioritize things you need, or who could fast forward your priorities to get closer to the goal, right, or the milestones, right? And then that becomes a coach. You either hire people to take care of things that you don't have time to do, or you hire someone who shows you the efficient way to take care of what you need to do, right? And that's the idea, is that you're moving time blocks of things that you would build up out of the way, or finding a more efficient way to climb them. Because they're all quote unquote obstacles. Not really. It's just life. You know, there's things that you have to take care of. There's things that you got to eat. You got to, take care. Maybe it's people you got to take care of. But like ultimately, there are things that you could do to fast forward the process or create less mental and physical roadblocks. And that's really what they are. They're not. Time is still there. It's just that they're getting in the way of you doing something, or doing more of something.
Those are some of the keys, Alan, that you're hitting on, is actually paying attention to all the pieces that are important to you, that matter, that some of it you could hire someone or give them away to someone that can do those things, or trade with someone else. But it's not about the process. It's about you narrowing down the energy that you're investing into your time to actually create the things that are valuable to you. Sometimes even you might hire someone so you could have time to sit and meditate, or to go take a walk, or go see your kid. There's so many things when we talk about time that become so crucial. It's not time again. Let's stop blaming time for time.
Yeah.
Thank God
Yeah.
for time. If we
If we didn't have time, we wouldn't be here.
we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So if we actually begin to look within ourselves of what matters as we move through the years, and as we move through the things that we're growing through, to what matters now, so that we can actually begin to evaluate the process of where we are investing our time and energy, so that it makes a difference. Like for you, you teach classes. That's valuable to you. You put that on your priority list. You created your own program that you're working with companies and doing things. All of those pieces speak value to your time.
Yeah.
Investing time with your child is worthwhile. The only person that can do that is you. So
Right.
when we say we got 1,000 things to manage or 1,000,000 things to manage, it's like, no, we don't.
Yeah.
We have one person to manage, and what are we allowing into our time frames? And does it fit into our time?
Yes. Yeah. I think an interesting point you're making, and it's a segue to how this even became a discussion, because I know you and I were talking a couple of weeks ago about this. And, is when people, there's a few things that I feel people can do, even simply, like without hiring anybody or getting a coach right away, smaller things. Like, for example, I don't have, my phone is not on. I mean, it's on, but it's not, the ringer's not on. So if it's out of, if I can't see it, I'm not bothered by it. And I thankfully don't have a job necessarily where people have to constantly call me here. And most of my job is online, and I talk to people via other online tools. So when I'm doing my work, there are things that come up related to work that I can jump on right back, take care of, email, instant message here. But this is all my personal stuff. And then when I'm at home, none of my work applications are on here. So if I'm not at work and you don't have my phone number and it's an emergency, oh well, you maybe should prioritize your priorities. I'm not bound to your priorities. And that was, I'm learning more and more. Often people forget that you have priorities. So they pull, especially if you, and I know you're one of these, you remember, like you would invest your time, you'd give your heart to somebody if they needed it, And but often, and again, if you are that type of person, if anyone's listening, that type of person, people will try to take more and more and more of your time because they are building their time, or they need help, or they can't afford a therapist, or whatever it is that they're doing. And often they forget what your time is. And and unfortunately, it's funny. I had a friend that was like, "Hey, can you help me move today?" Like like I was with my cousin. This happened recently, and he's like, "Hey," I told him, "Hey, I'm with my cousin." And then the next day, I didn't hear from him. Next day, he's like, "Oh, tell him I said hi. By the way, can you help me move today?" No. And he's like a really close friend of mine, but I'm like, no, you're not respecting my time now or my priorities. You didn't even give me a chance to prepare a time to help you. You're like, I need help right now. It's not an emergency. So therefore, no. If you cut your arm or something, I need a ride to the hospital, sure. But it's like, I think I've gotten over being the people pleaser and trying to help everybody with their time. Unfortunately, that's a lot of times what people who have a lot to give, the first thing they take from you is your time. And they don't consider what you might have going on, what you might be feeling that day, where your priorities are. And so that's why certain communication points I wouldn't say eliminated, but it's a lot harder to get a hold of me on, because I don't want to spend time. You make an appointment. Tell me when you're ready to talk, or when you're ready to do X, or in advance. Don't just snatch up my time. I'm in the middle of eating or when I'm doing something, right? And so I feel that more and more, because we have this kind of access to everything on these rectangles, that people don't respect the fact that you might be in the middle of something. But back in the day, when you have to call somebody, it was just an answer machine that would be there, and they'd call you, and if you weren't there, you weren't there. And then they'd have to leave a message. Let me know when you're available on blah, blah, blah. Call me when you're available. But just because you have this, they think you're available all the time. That's not true. That's why I say, put it down, put the face down if you need to. Don't have all these alerts. Don't have things popping up. Don't have all these noises. They're constantly distracting you from your objectives. It's a perpetual, even if your objective is to just take a nap or watch a YouTube video, or get some mental rest, because this is not giving it to you at all. Take a break from all this. And thankfully, I learned that early on because I got bothered by the fact that the notification that came up here, this notification, text, and then someone would call, and then it would be a Facebook thing, and then what Instagram, whatever it is. It's like, I don't know, no, none of that. I have none of those alerts activated. This phone doesn't even make a sound unless I
You
needed
know
to.
what I heard from you right now is that you value your time.
Yes.
You value how you invest your time and energy every day.
Yeah.
So I know we've heard it a lot, get rid of the notification and stuff, but you've
Mhm.
actually taken the step of doing it.
Yeah.
And the person that's reaching out, they haven't learned that lesson yet within
Right.
themselves.
Right.
Not being judgmental, but they haven't learned the lesson that their time is valuable, your time is valuable. And I have to admit, I used to not be great at this. I used to ask a lot of things out of my sister. She's an attorney. I'd ask her questions
Mm,
that
mm,
are not necessarily in her field,
mm.
yet she would take the time and look them up and do all the things till I became a lot more aware that, hey, just by me asking, I just took away something that is so precious from her for
Mm.
her to attempt to do what I needed to, although I could have done it a different way. But that took that awareness,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah. Yeah.
for me to understand, it's like when you ask, you're asking a person to give away the most precious things that anyone has is time.
Fine. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you start to pay attention, really, that's what the whole purpose of doing a lot of these podcasts is, for people to become aware of how we treat ourselves, how we treat each other. So
Hmm.
in this case, I learned that valuable lesson by paying attention. Like, just because it's hard for me, well, it's just as hard for her to take the time and do the things that I'm asking.
Yeah. And especially if it's like in the middle of a routine, if it's done the way I look at it, if you make an appointment and you're asking for help, but you're respectful of the time. You can't. Here's a couple things you can't do. You can't go whenever you're available. You have to say when are you available, what day and time,
Good.
right? Because when they're available may never be ever. You're never a priority at that point, and vice versa. If anyone does that with you, you're like, oh, I'm available whenever. And I hate when people say that because it's like that's not true.
That's
3 in the morning, can I call you?
totally true. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, if you say okay, on Wednesday at this time, let's set up a talk, a meeting. Then they'd be willing to give you because you're respecting their time, and that might be a free moment where they have time to clear their schedule, think, decompress from their day and whatever they're doing. When you interfere with what people are doing, when you kind of intercept where they're going or in the day, that throws them off course or that changes their direction. Again, there's nothing wrong with that if it's an emergency or you get unforeseen circumstances. But if you want to be respectful, pick a time and day, and then pick a time limit. If it's like, oh, I only need like a half hour, okay, let's do that. Not indefinitely, not like it just keeps building, and that's where because it becomes then this is when people become resentful, in my opinion. Like I can at least speak for me, and I don't know how to speak if it's your sister the same way, but if a student wants to talk to me outside of class, well, like all the time in the world, you know. But if they're calling me during the day while I'm at work, we're gonna have a problem, And I have that with like certain friends of mine that will call me during my work day, and it's like, no, we can't have that. Pick a time and day. And if you were bartending, I wouldn't call you. Hey, what are you doing? I'm working. um, but if you pick a time and day, and given the person that has a busy schedule, then that part of their day might actually be good for them, and it might even be better for you if you're respectful for it, because then they'll give you their best full attention rather than being distracted. What did you say? What? What you ask? Um, so I think that when you're mindful, again, as you said, mindful of your own time and respectful of your own time, and you make sure that you're at your best when you are giving it away. That's another area. So if you do give away this precious commodity, then which is your prioritizations, then you are your best when you've cleared up all this other stuff that's in your life. You can't keep giving that away in smaller doses, because eventually you're not left with nothing for yourself. So it's like you got to build your own reservoir of all these things. And
I
that means
love that you touched on scheduling things, because I know even for me, in the
yeah,
past, I would think, oh, you got to be free with yourself to be able to
yeah,
live the life that you love and do these things. But realistically, when you actually schedule time, whether it's for a friend, a meeting, you actually are kind to yourself and them, and you're making that a priority.
yeah.
And that is one of the toughest thing to ingrain into a lot of people's mindset, is that
Mhm.
scheduling things is actually the best way that you can create kind-heartedness, honestly. And I might take it to a level where it's touchy-feely, but because you care about something, because you care
Mhm.
about someone, they actually end up on your schedule.
Yeah,
Anything
right.
that's not scheduled
Yeah, it could come or
is not
go.
that important.
Not that important. You're right. Yeah, yeah,
That's just a switch in mindset. Like, because it's important, it's on my schedule.
right. Yeah, yeah. That's a great way of looking at that. And even if you like, I'm like you. Like I used to be like, and I still am to some degree. Whatever happens, happens. Well, free will, whatever it is. But I've learned more and more that I put meetings and things that I want to do in my little calendar that I look at pretty much every day, even if it's not work related. It's like, hey, talk to so and so. I'm talk to Rima at this time. And then because they're like you said, if they're important, then I put them in my time frame. Right? Like you said, everything else could go by the wayside if I decide to not, if I don't want to be a part of it, or I just get distracted and I forget. And then I'm not even going to entertain it anymore because it's not as important to me. But if it's on a schedule, oh, I better really prep myself for this time that I'm going to spend with this person, or this time I'm going to spend with myself. I'm going to at this time meditate, or at this time I'm going to take a walk or work out or whatever it is. Matter of fact, it's funny on my calendar I have every day around between 12 and 1:30. I said, reserve for lunch. Do not book me here unless you absolutely need me.
I think that's great.
And you know what's funny? My one of my coworkers did the same. Like he's like the head of the department, and he's a VP as well. He's like, I'm doing that. I'm gonna block that off because people forget. Oh, I have an
Mhm.
appointment at 12. Can you do this? No. You see my calendar? I'm not available during that time. Anything in this color, I'm not available. And then some people get away with it a little bit. Yeah, I let them. I'm like, it's okay. I only did that because for a long time everyone was booking me anytime they wanted. And at that point, I had to reserve book time for myself. Carve that out at the very least. That block of time is for me. It doesn't matter what I do during it. Eat, sleep, laundry, whatever it is. That time in the middle of the day is my time. So very few exceptions come off of that. And that was hard for me to figure that out until it happened. Well, I was like, oh, I don't think anyone really cares about my time. I have to care.
There you go. You have to care. That's the key.
Yeah, you
I
have to care
learned
about
that
yourself.
lesson
Yeah.
very well from a source that I wouldn't have expected. A few years back, I was actually doing a fashion company, and
Mhm.
I'll do a shout out to Mary Jane Ralph. She
Mhm.
was one of the leaders, and she actually showed me her calendar, how she actually schedules into it her personal time, her
Mhm.
business time, and everything else, so that it makes sense. Even though I knew some of this stuff, but applying it and seeing it from someone I respected and was actually working a full-time job, has a family, and all these priorities, and lots of people coming at her for her time, and
Mhm.
how she actually managed all of it. But to
Mhm.
see it in perspective is because it mattered. It
Yeah.
ended up in her schedule, even though she might block off, like you said, a time for her personal time or whatever
Mhm.
that no one can touch.
Yeah.
Those are great lessons to actually begin to implement in a reality time frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it goes back to, again, we're not managing time, we're managing ourselves.
Yeah.
We're
Manage
managing what
ourselves,
we
our
allow
priorities.
in or
Yeah,
not
exactly.
allow in, just
Yeah.
as much. What
Yeah.
don't we
Yeah.
allow in?
That's a great point. What are we not allowing in? What are we allowing in? What are we not allowing in? There is only a limited amount of space that it can occupy, right? Because there's only so many hours in a day, and there's only so much you can do in one day, and physically or otherwise. So, what are you spending your time on doing on which days of this? You know, some people's schedules are more hectic and frantic than others. Some people have regular things, um, and other people have things where it's very sporadic. And so you have to carve out when and you're available for whatever to happen, when you're going to take time for yourself, and when you have free space to be like, okay, if something, this is a little buffer zone where it doesn't matter. you know, and that's really important. I think it's a lesson that I think the reason why people have little time or don't start projects or whatever those things are, because they're not taking time out to do that. Ironically, time out to do that. Take time out to take time out. Carve out some time to make some time.
But that's the truth.
But it's true.
It's the truth.
Yeah. It's like you really have to spend at least a few minutes or maybe 10, 15 minutes to look at your calendar and go, okay, what times am I really available, or when do I want to be available for certain things? And what times am I not available for anything but me? And you have to be realistic. You can't be like, well, I'm not available between Monday and Thursday. On Friday, I have an hour, and that's it. It's like, wait a minute. Okay, look, now you're thinking a little too much. But I think usually it's the opposite problem. Most people don't realistically take time out for themselves, and they occupy it with a million other things, and not enough mental awareness and physical rest or exercise. Like that type of thing, getting your blood pumping and doing things that are a little outside of yourself. You sit in front of these screens and smaller screens and bigger screens, and often we don't take enough time to appreciate the surrounding world. So if you find yourself in a job where you're constantly looking at a computer all day, probably on a daily basis, take the time to take a walk outside and look at trees for a minute. And if you have access to that, or if it's a desert, then go look at the sand. So whatever it is you got to do. But it really, if you don't make that time, then it's not going to happen. You have to carve it out, right? And unfortunately, we're in a society now where that's becoming more and more prevalent. We're in front of things even if it is leisure, it's always on a computer or on a phone or on a TV or So take the time out to get away from that and put yourself outside of that. It's healthy.
I was listening to a conversation earlier today from Coach Sean Smith. And he was talking very realistically about people saying that they need to kill time. They have a couple of minutes here, they're out doing errands or whatever, and they jump on social media and they sit there and scroll mindlessly at things because they're killing time. And who really would like to kill time?
Yeah.
It's so devastating to our mind that we teach it that that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
That awareness to go, no, I don't have time to kill.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to do this. And just as easily to choose something else.
Yeah.
So that dopamine factor from these things occupying our most precious commodity, our time.
Yeah. You're filling it up with, like you said, dopamine. And yeah, it's easy to get caught up in it because it's so accessible. I have to actively not do it nowadays, where I'm on, and I do actively do it. I'll back to that point. Like if I'm in a restaurant and waiting for my meal, I don't automatically look at my phone any longer. I might just look around.
Kudos.
Right. But I mean, no, it has to actively do it because I know my first instinct is to go, let me look at my phone for a minute. Let me see what's going on in my whatever environment. And this is like a weekend. It's like a Sunday, and I'm just randomly going to a restaurant by myself just to grab a breakfast because I was out doing something. And so I'll just go, I'll just hop in here, maybe get a little restaurant breakfast. And sure enough, first thing I do after the order, see if I can look at my phone, occupy myself with social media or some kind of activity. And I have to, okay, don't put that down or in my pocket and just sit there. And there's a lot of power in just sitting there, and or look around you, look at the people, read the signs that are in the place, notice the fun of the world. Sometimes it's hilarious, but at least occupy yourself with something that's not staring at something that's bringing all this dopamine stuff trips to you.
Be present where you are.
Be present.
That's what you be present where you are.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Alan, because that part, society and our world has taught us that we got to be constantly running, constantly doing something.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not valuable. And that's why even grabbing our phone to look at social media feels like, oh, we're doing something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
When in reality, what's wrong with sitting there and observing, like you said, and being present and enjoying the meal, enjoying the company that's around you?
Yeah.
Isn't that where life is lived versus a lot of these instruments?
Even like daydreaming. There's a George Carlin bit about that. Sometimes they should just block a few hours a day for kids to just daydream. Because it's like, you're constantly learning stuff, or at least an hour, just to sit there and think about things and, oh, this would be cool. A lot of your best thoughts and probably a lot of the best ideas ever come up, inventions, is because someone was thinking about it. I wonder what that would be like if I could do this automatically. I wonder what it'd be like if I could have all my music collection in one place, and then all of a sudden the iPod was invented, because someone took the initiative from a daydream to go, oh, that's actually a really good idea. Now it became a new project, right? The Steve Jobs of the world or whatever it is, So, but I bet you half of the time that they take some time to just think, oh, it'd be kind of neat if this happened. And it doesn't have to be productivity necessarily, but I bet you a lot of really great thoughts, great ideas, or even your own mental, when you're being creative, a lot of times you need to kind of take that step back and just be like, oh, let me try this. You need that time to self-reflect and be self-aware, and then you kind of tap into a different part of your brain that's a little more healthy. It's a little more like, hey, let's try to make these things happen. You don't have to constantly be doing, because you are doing in your brain, you're always doing something, right?
Too much.
Yeah. And especially
the 1,000-item list, like, no,
absolutely. No. Right. No, anytime to turn on another part of your brain or use a different facet of it, or just give it a rest and just look around and be like, okay, it's not bombarding you with data. It's like, oh, it's just, okay, it's just people. People are smiling. Oh, that person has this thing. Oh, I have that same shirt. And, oh, this person looks happy. Oh, this sign's kind of funny, the coffee guy or whatever. So it's like, you need that time and those priorities. And sometimes it's like deprioritizing data and information and reprioritizing your self awareness in those things. And I think and often the more you can do that, the more effective and more efficient you'll be in the other things. I know that
that's the skill. That's the habit, to build that habit.
Yeah.
To look at everything and really narrow it down to where you're going with your time and energy. I somewhat learned that, unfortunately, when my sister was getting ready to pass away from cancer, and it jolted my brain to go, how am I investing this time and energy, especially now that there's very limited time.
Right.
It's so crazy how all of a sudden your priorities become so clear. You no longer have the fluff that you think that you do. You get rid of it all. You begin managing yourself a lot better. That lesson was a wonderful lesson in that aspect. To really be mindful, to really be present, to notice what you're not noticing because you're too occupied with attempting to manage your future time or your time that is already past. It's like, no, be here. Be here.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, you reprioritize things when there's an end to it. I think we often think everything's going to last forever. And we don't realize that there's finite realities that we're living in. Some longer than others, but it's all finite in some level, right? So, prioritize what you think is important, but at the same time, be mindful of the people that are involved with that, because you don't know when you're going to see them, how you're going to interact with them. So, and maybe, part of the lesson is to appreciate as well, right? It's always about appreciation.
Definitely is.
The journey
Not
is,
cramming more stuff in there. No,
yeah,
that's not
yeah.
what it's about.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, no, what can you get rid of so that you can
Yeah.
come back to you and to what
Yeah.
matters in your life?
Yeah. It really is funny. On a lighter note, I know where I've, I've been involved with in relationships, and a vacation would be planned. It's like, okay, how about right after work, we leave and then we'll take this week off and come back the next Sunday night. And then we start work on Monday morning. And I'm like, ah. And it's like, it's funny because it's a vacation. But there's so much that's involved with all of that. I said, look, can we just build a cushion in there somewhere to just not do anything? Like Sunday, we should be back on Saturday. And Sunday, all we do is nothing, or just whatever we have to do that day, or think, or just enjoy the fact that we did that. Right. Because we're still on vacation, still running around and hustle and bustle and all that. It's fun, but I needed a decompression day where I'm decompressing from the time I spent not doing all this stuff, and a whole new part of my brain's being interacted with, and to recalibrate to get ready for the next time. I didn't want to have to rush that, and all of a sudden jump right back into the next mode the next morning. I didn't want to do that. I would wanted a day to just be like, hey, rather enjoyed that, and that helped me get motivated for the next week. And so thankfully I was able to say that, hey, can we'll do one day to decompress. Yeah, okay, sorry. Because people want to cram in as much as they can in the one day. You're like, oh, you have time off? Let's do this and do this and do this. Like, no, I have time off, so I don't have to think about anything. I don't want to do this. That's my whole day. I
I'm
want to
glad
be
you're saying that. I
you
am so
know,
glad you're saying that, Alan,
yeah,
because the mentality is go, 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 go.
yeah,
But realistically is there's so much energy that you have within a day to
yeah,
invest. And if you
right,
don't get the time to actually decompress and relax, then you won't have the right mentality the next day. It'll continue to run, 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 run. And at
yeah,
some point, the run, run, run is gonna run like this, and
yeah,
you're gonna come crashing.
yeah.
And
No, for
that's
sure.
what's happening to a lot of people. It's like go, 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 go. I gotta
Yeah,
cram in so much into the time. I gotta do this much. It's like you better
the, you're
reevaluate.
you're absolutely right. There are studies out there that are realizing that the amount of things that we keep cramming into the time we have, because it's not that we don't have more time, is that we are cramming more things within that time space, because we could take care of this to this simultaneously because of technology. Before, it may have required one person to take care of these set of things because we were in a building and we had to move papers around, versus, an email, I can just do that. I don't have to sit down and write a letter. I could just do it this way, or I could have a template. Now I have, so now I don't even have to spell everything correctly. I could just do an emoji. Oh, sad face, click. And so instead of like,
Guilty.
yeah, right, and I do the same thing, but after a while that frees up time that you cram more of that in there. All those little things that we're doing, we're cramming more and more in there, and our mind has to go through mental acrobatics to keep jumping back and forth between all of these things. So all of a sudden we're just exhausted, and we don't know why. And that's why. It's because we're not physically doing these things, we're mentally doing these things to ourselves, and we didn't take enough time off of it to relax so we could do things more effectively later. And that's where what the in my opinion, a lot of the fatigue comes in. So we there's too many inputs and not enough understanding about when to input it and when to prioritize certain things. And because it's a new technology, it's wonderful technology, but just like anything, comes with a price. And you got to learn to manage it. You got to learn to move it effectively. And unfortunately, people just keep digesting, and they get full and tired, and then they spend more time doing that. Then they feel empty in their lives, so they just spend more time doing that. It's like
And
booze
it
or
affects
anything
who
else.
you are. It affects how
Right.
you're being in that
Yeah.
moment, in that day. And I notice it very well on the days that I overload myself.
Yeah.
And then I may not speak in the kindest terms,
Hmm.
with my parents who I love and take care of, but I might snap, and then I'm aware. It's like, whoa,
Yeah. Yeah.
what did I just do?
Yeah.
And what caused me to do that? And that's the mental awareness to go, I've overloaded myself, or I'm not dedicating enough time and energy to what I need to,
Yeah.
so that I can remove some things off of my plate. That awareness is such key.
Yeah.
To paying attention to who you're being, how you're implementing yourself, work, business, friendship, everything
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that awareness.
Mhm.
And that's what I'd love for our listeners to be getting out of this. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Where can I be better
Yeah.
in who I am?
Yep. In my priorities. Where are my priorities? And not just to clear it so you could just do whatever. It's to really inwardly reflect and say, okay, what am I really working on myself during this time? Even if it's relaxing and meditating and help, but it's to help you. It is to help yourself. It's really to understand that your priorities are there to help you. So you got to put your priorities, self-help, inside of those list of things that you're doing throughout the day. Self-help, whether that's something healthy to do, whether it's just daydreaming or exercising or meditating or just making time to talk to somebody that you haven't talked to in a long time that you enjoy talking with. Some people you talk to because you're involved with them, work-wise. There's other people that are like, oh, I like that. What are we talking about that person? I'm talking about the people that energize you. You got to take time out to do those things and prioritize them. Because otherwise, you're just gonna be controlled by everything around you, and you're gonna be left with this husk, just moving around. Automation. Okay, I do this. I do this. I do this now, and you forget who you are in the middle of all that.
So we're going to advise our listeners right now to please take the time to be aware within yourself. How are you prioritizing yourself and your energy of your day?
Yeah.
How are you investing it?
Yeah.
It's not time management, it's personal management.
Personal management, priority management. Schedule in some self-love in your day. Even if it's a half hour, just take time to love yourself for a minute.
Because without you, nothing exists.
Exactly. It's not going to matter.
Without you, nothing exists. I say a lot to my students, there's not a single person on this planet that can take one single breath on your behalf.
Right.
So please take care of you. And that's the truth. That's the ultimate truth that I've learned through all the wonderful things that we have grown through. And I know you've gone through a lot of stuff yourself.
100%.
That's the bottom line, is show up in the present time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And don't cram things into your time.
Yeah. No cramming.
Thank you guys for listening. We will be back next week with another fun topic for you guys to pitch in. Alan, any final statements?
No, thank you so much. Again, I'm going to take some time out to enjoy our conversation and decompress from all the fun we just had. And I appreciate everybody who's even listening right now. If you have any comments or things you want to add to that, please leave a comment in whatever platform you're listening to this on. And if you have things that you'd like to, even some people who would even have feedback on the show, we'll read your questions aloud and even answer them at some point. So we'd love some participation.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate your time. That's for sure. See you next time.
Take care.